election.
He just couldn't handle it, so he kind of engaged in a meltdown.
She and other Democrats left, something House Minority Leader Kevin McCarthy criticized.
I've been in a lot of meetings where individuals get heated with one another. I do not believe in that process that you get up and you walk away.
He called the meeting after the speaker left productive. Pelosi says leaders don't have all the facts, and she's deeply concerned.
Fox's Gernal Scott. The meeting came just after the House overwhelmingly voted to condemn the president's decision to pull U.S. troops out of northern Syria. Lawmakers will shift their focus from Syria to Ukraine on Capitol Hill Thursday. More administration officials are set to testify behind closed doors at the impeachment inquiry.
The ambassador to the EU, Gordon Sondland, is expected to tell lawmakers about the no quid pro quo comment that we've all now seen in that text message about the president's Ukraine policy and about holding up funds.
Fox's Kevin Cork. The Wall Street Journal reports Energy Secretary Rick Perry said he called Rudy Giuliani, the president's personal attorney, about Ukraine this spring at President Trump's direction. Perry says he contacted Giuliani to help ease a path so that the president and his new Ukrainian counterpart could meet. And about 25,000 Chicago teachers plan to walk off the job Thursday after failing to get a contract.
I would be remiss if I did not say I was disappointed by the CTU's decision to begin a work stoppage and force the cancellation of classes.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Schools will be open, students not required to attend. America's listening to Fox News.
Did you know that home loan rates have plunged again? Would you like to take advantage of these lower rates to help lower your monthly payments? Refinancing doesn't have to be for another 30 years. It can be for 10, 15, or 20 years. It's up to you. Reduce your monthly payments, pay off your loan earlier. At Bank Pacific, where we're open to closing your loan in a hurry.
Bank Pacific, where others put branches, we place roots.
Equal housing lender, credit conditions apply.
Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro brings you island hospitality with a true taste of modern Chamorro cuisine. A bistro look that feels like home. Their menu features local and traditional flavors with a twist. From their famous Calaguan Hafa to fresh ahi poke salad and their award-winning barbecue ribs. Mescla takes your favorite local dishes and serves them with extra flair that you'll only find at Mescla Chamorro Fusion Bistro. Stop by their newest location in the Grand Plaza Hotel in Tumon. For reservations, call 969-2652. Mescla, a true taste of Guam.
The latest Democratic debate drew in a big audience for CNN, but fell short of earlier ones.
The Democratic debate on CNN saw frontrunner Elizabeth Warren come under attack from her fellow Democratic opponents. However, watching Warren field the onslaught was not enough to draw a bigger audience than previous debates. Tuesday evening's debate grabbed about 8.3 million viewers, down 46% from the first debate on NBC, which came in at 15.3 million, according to Variety. The two previous CNN debates garnered 10.7 and 9 million, respectively. None of the Democratic debates so far have come close to the 24 million posted by Fox News, which featured Donald Trump's first debate in August of 2015. Michelle Polino, Fox News.
Lawyers for killer Jodi Arias will appeal to a court in Arizona Thursday to overturn her conviction for the 2008 murder of her boyfriend. She argues she did not get a fair trial and blames the prosecutor's misconduct and a judge's failure to control news coverage. An up-and-coming boxer dies over the weekend after suffering injuries in the ring.
Boxing promoter Lou DiBella confirming the death of junior middleweight boxer Patrick Day Wednesday. That's days after he suffered a brutal 10th-round knockout loss. Day was knocked out cold by a left hook from Charles Conwell during a fight at Wintrust Arena in Chicago, slamming his head hard onto the canvas, leading medical personnel to surround him in the ring. Within minutes, he was taken out on a stretcher to an ambulance to a nearby hospital. Day never regained consciousness from Saturday night, at one point suffering a seizure, then lapsing into a coma before undergoing emergency brain surgery. Patrick Day was 27 years old. Matt Napolitano, Fox News.
And stocks slipped after retail sales unexpectedly fell. The Dow lost 22 points. The Nasdaq dropped 24. Retail sales dipped slightly in September. An economist had expected a gain. I'm Carmen Roberts, and this is Fox News.
at the mall as you enjoy your shopping, dining, or entertainment. You could also win 3 great cars from Atkins Kroll and thousands of prizes in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game. Present your mall receipts and have a chance to win the renowned performance Chevrolet Camaro, the unapologetic rugged Toyota 4Runner, or the head-turning Lexus ES350 Luxury. Getaways to Manila, courtesy of Philippine Airlines, plus prizes from Foot Locker and Burger King. The more you shop, the more chance to win in Micronesia Mall's Cars, Prizes, and Getaways game.
It's a one-of-a-kind wine fundraiser. Guahan Sustainable Culture presents Wine in the Garden. The Hamamoto Gardens help support food sovereignty, security, and sustainability while sipping wines from around the world, surrounded by 50-some acres of beautiful farm and garden. Tickets are $75 each. Proceeds support education and outreach on how important, easy, and fun sustainable practices can be. Wine in the Garden is on Saturday evening, October 26th, starting at 5. For more details, go to our website, gusustainable.org, or call 687-6491.
Welcome to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, the only show on talk radio where common sense is a lot more common. Phone lines are now open at 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, The Point proudly brings you Tall Tales with Senator Bob Klitzkie.
Oh, I'm sorry, Daryl.
Wasn't there something else I was supposed to come on first?
It was supposed to say starring Daryl Taggarty.
Well, there we go. Okay, a well-regulated militia being necessary to the security of a free state, the right of the people to keep and bear arms shall not be infringed. How's that? That's the way to get going.
Outstanding.
Thank you. Tall Tales for a Thursday, October 17th, year of our Lord 2019. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who is off island once again, but he promises to be back here before Thanksgiving, and so don't have a countdown so much. He gives me an exact date that I can do a countdown. But here we are this afternoon. Thank you very much for tuning in. I know there's plenty of other places you could be, other things you could be doing, but you are tuned in to Tall Tales here on The Point. And you can call us at 888-8255, or you can go to our Facebook page and join us there. Let's see. I'm just going to go ahead and click out here and in there. I was trying to figure out how to use my computer to go to all the places that I would like to go in the world of, online. But I don't have everything on the one screen, But we'll work this all out. The circus is coming. It's already here. That's today. Yeah, the circus is coming. It's already here. Real Joe, you've been here since this morning, right?
Yeah, I've been here since about 4 a.m.
Well, hey, doing God's work. You're going to get special dispensation. Just check in with the priest, and you'll be
yeah, no thank you on
blessed.
That one. No thank you on that one.
Oh, you're going to get credits anyway. But yeah, thanks for being here this afternoon. And I heard you this morning on the air this morning, so it's good that we're all here this afternoon. I've got some editorials, and also I'm going to do my very best to fit into the very experienced shoes of Bob Klitzkie by stressing the card. And so on today's show, we're going to have Jami Kotny, and then we're going to have the card. And so do stay tuned for the card, and we'll see how we can get through that as established by Bob himself, and for me to find a way to live up to his high standards. Right now, I don't have any stories on the Second Amendment. I did try to do something this afternoon. I went over to Guam Energy office and tried to find a citation, but they said they turned over all their research from years back to the Guam Public Library and Micronesian Area Research Center. So I'm going to stay on it, and I'll bring that stuff to you. But in the meantime, I don't have the tally between Guam Daily Post editorials and the PDN editorials, except from the last day I was here, and that's October 3rd. And then I'm going to have to go through and see what Bob did during the week he was here.
Yeah, he didn't give any blue stars out.
Oh, he didn't? Okay, so we're...
I don't think so.
Okay, well, you were here.
No, maybe there was one. There was one. Guam Daily Post, I think they got one. But
I'll make note.
He was very, very stingy.
Oh, it's not... He's not stingy and I'm not stingy. But if they don't live up to our standards, it's just going to be the way it is.
It's called Moschino.
But you know, we would be so happy to reward good work, recognize good work, and because the two newspapers have not only are their editorials read every day by people taking our public local life seriously, but also those editorials will be available in black and white as long as the digital copies are available. And so when you go back 20 years from now and you pull up an editorial on a topic and it takes you totally in the wrong direction, you're going to go in the wrong direction. Now, maybe you'll go over and you'll find the Tall Tales Facebook live broadcast, and then you'll hear Zami Kotny, and then you'll get the straight skinny on it. But it shouldn't have to be that way. We should be able to rely on the printed editorials as accurately reflecting life on the island. And so that's why we take this so seriously, and that's why it's not a matter of being stingy. We want to encourage them to do better. And so I feel stingy sometimes, so it's an accurate word. You put it right, but we're not trying to be stingy. We're really trying to be encouraging for Zami Kotny. So let's go ahead to start Zami Kotny. Pressing the meat here on October 17th. Both Guam Daily Post and the Pacific Daily News have local editorials, and in fact on the same subject. And so it's a good time to take a look at and see just what's going on in the community that has both newspapers in an uproar. The Pacific Daily News says education not a top priority, and Guam Daily Post editorial is UOG's 30% proposed tuition hike excessive. So let's take a look at this and see just what's up, okay? Because this is an interesting day for what we have going on with education funding. Guam Daily Post, UOG 30% proposed tuition hike excessive. A 30% increase in tuition at the University of Guam is without a doubt excessive. UOG's administration had proposed 3 10% tuition hikes, one each in spring and fall of 2020 and one in the spring of 2021. On Wednesday afternoon, it approved the same 30% hike, though it will be stretched out over more semesters. For non-resident students, the proposed rates will be 200% of resident tuition rates, while candidates who meet the Western Interstate Commission for Higher Education requirements will pay 150% of the resident rate, the university has said. Only a few elected officials appeared to support students who said that, even if they stayed right here at home, the tuition hikes would push a UOG education out of their reach. So on Wednesday, the students walked out and protested. Some of their protest signs said, quote, higher tuition equals higher dropout, and, quote, rise above tuition hikes. Nolan Flores, a merit scholar and sophomore at UOG, said, quote, It's a very dramatic tuition increase that will have harmful effects on our university. Enrollment is likely to drop. Many students simply can't afford to pay a 30% increase in what they already pay. The university says GovGuam gives it less than it asks for and needs. This is not unique to UOG. The Guam Department of Education often doesn't receive all the funds it needs and is authorized under the budget law, yet the schools try to make do. The local university needs to get realistic about what the students and their families can afford. UOG needs to strike a careful balance between further burdening students and trimming spending on the administrative side. Just this February, the university's regents adopted a new salary scale for administrators. It's time to look at UOG's staffing, see what administrative jobs are needed and which aren't. The university also needs to seriously look at cutting administrative officials and staffers' pay to reduce the tuition increase it's passing on to students. Administrators can't shift most of UOG's cash squeeze onto students and their families. They also need to cut costs. What positions can be cut? What positions can take pay cuts? What expenses can UOG give up? After the walkout Wednesday, UOG issued a statement that the proposed increase will be stretched out over a longer period. The first tuition increase will be up 5% in August, with up to 5% increases in each of the following 5 semesters, or until reaching 30%. A 30% increase in just a handful of semesters is still steep. Kudos to the students for standing up to the tuition increases. Maybe taxpayers can borrow a page or two from UOG students and start to be more vocal about tax increases. That's the Guam Daily Post. Editorial today, UOG's 30% proposed tuition hike excessive. Now, if this gets your goat, of course you can call up, or you can go online on our Facebook page like Nate Horn and Ishmael Velez and Sherry Iriarty and Sabina Chargaloff, and so far signing in, and make a comment. Or you can call us here at 888-8255 and let me know what you think. When I read this article, this editorial a while back, earlier today, it's, what did I do here? Okay, the Post. Okay, they made two suggestions for the University of Guam to look at admin salary hikes and trim admin staffing. And student demonstrations are an example for Guam taxpayers when faced with tax increases. However, they skipped the obvious. I mean, what's missing from this editorial is the obvious. GovGuam has to find ways to trim its expenses so the University of Guam and the Guam Department of Education are fully funded. You know, and this will come out in the PDN editorial covers some aspects that were not included in the Post editorial, but it's on the same subject. So let's go ahead and take a look at this other editorial. Rather than pitting them against each other, let's see what the total impact is of the two editorials. PDN, on page 20, under Our View, Education Not a Top Priority, adequately fund the University of Guam. And this is what they wrote. The proof that elected officials have consistently lied and continue to lie when they say public education is a top priority is evidenced by the University of Guam's decision and need to increase tuition. The fiscal 2020 budget will appropriate a little more than $27.6 million for UOG, about $6.2 million less than the university's budget request. During budget discussions, UOG President Thomas Kreis said the $33.9 million budget request was needed to prevent an increase to tuition. Quote, our general operations request for $33.9 million is not an inflated request. It is what's needed to avoid an increase in tuition, which would be a burden on students and their families and would reduce access to higher education, Kreis said. Thank you very much. That reminder to all of you who are in need of some medical approach, or simply have happy hour coming a little earlier than the rest of us. Reminder. Let's see, where was I? Christ said. Kreis, not Christ. Kreis said. On Wednesday, students walked out of classes to protest a proposed increase to tuition. Well, they paid for the class, so they can skip it or they can walk out of it. They just don't, they just have to still make the grade, right, just studying. The UOG Board of Regents voted to approve an increase of up to 5% per semester, up to a 30% increase over the current tuition rate, subject to the approval of the university president. Before the vote, Senator Amanda Shelton made a plea with the Board of Regents and opposed tuition increases for students. Quote, my foremost concern is the interest of all our students, many of whom already struggle to afford college and rely on federal and local aid to cover the cost of education, said Shelton. Quote, I ask what safeguards are in place to protect the interest of the students, specifically as it relates to the affordability of their college education. In a news release, Shelton said she ensured the University of Guam will get its full allotments for the fiscal 2019 and fiscal 2020. But the University of Guam was shorted $13.7 million from fiscal 2016 to fiscal 2018 and $9.56 million in fiscal 2019. Quote, this fiscal bleeding is unsustainable, Kreis said. Ensuring the university's allotments are paid in full is meaningless unless the budget amount is enough to cover all operational costs. In fact, it's insulting that any agency would need special attention from a senator to ensure it gets the funding it has been allotted by the government of Guam's budget. If Shelton or any other senator wants to prevent a tuition increase, she must ensure the University of Guam has a budget that's adequate to cover all operational expenses. And so, taking a look at this very same issue, but the way that it's treated by the Pacific Daily News editorial, let's just recap what they put in here. The legislature itself did not appropriate the full amount requested by UOG, despite being warned that tuition increases would result. Right? It was the legislature that shorted UOG in the budget. There are two issues here. You can fund them fully, and then the governor would not release the full allotment. And if that took place in 2019, it said $9.56 million in fiscal 2019. Well, that was done under this administration, under Lou Leon Guerrero's administration. She took office in January, at the beginning of the second quarter of the fiscal year. $9.56 million. And then they're talking about having a surplus of $15 million? How's that? How do you get those two numbers? How do you reconcile those two numbers? Now, that's something that actually this editorial should be asking. And Senator Amanda Shelton put out a press release saying that she ensured the University of Guam will get its full allotments for fiscal 2019 and fiscal 2020. How's that? Did they put something in the budget that said whatever extra money we get for 2019 over and above our projected amounts will go to UOG? I mean, that already was a trick that was that was made by Senator Therese Tlahi, to benefit Guam Memorial Hospital. But if all the money that was collected, we have a surplus, but UOG didn't get $9.5 million, then $9.56 million went to something else. Was it even what? And the committee that oversees the budget is notified every time the governor, or PBMR, Department of Administration, but the governor's approval, every time they slide money from one thing to another. How could the government of Guam not give just UOG $9.56 million in fiscal 2019 and end up with a $15.7 million surplus? And then she's going to go and beg the University of Guam Board of Regents not to raise tuition, and then claim that she ensured that UOG is going to get their money, the full allotment, after the legislature for fiscal 2020 shorted them. The university has nowhere else to go. It could start cutting back, just make a smaller university. Okay, let's see. We only have 4 students for this class. Okay, let's fire the professor, close down the office, get rid of they just stop trying to even teach that course. Right? That's one way to do it. I mean, I'd like to go back and take a look at why they had to increase administrative salaries. I think that's a good place to start. But there's so many more questions pop up through this editorial and this story than meet our eyes. And we really rely on the Pacific Daily News to flesh out its story. Now, maybe this caller on line 1 has the answer. Tom, do you have the answer?
I think I do.
Please.
All we need to do is put everything that we own under receivership.
Oh, we have.
The first thing that we need to put under receivership is the administration. Then the second one is the legislature. Because they just they do not know how to run a government.
Oh, Tom, they know how to run it so well. They slid $9.56 million out of the money that was collected. They slipped it out of the University of Guam's allotment and used it for something else. But if you have $15.7 million surplus, and that's surplus to all of the other bills being paid, then what was authorized to be spent $9.56 million? You know what I'm getting at here?
They're going to reserve the $9-some million for gallivanting, man. Because look, the lieutenant governor already stole $400,000 from Kaha, and he's going to keep it in his piggy bank because he wants to use it for him and the 100 people to travel the fest back. Okay, and every year he's going to be traveling somewhere, or maybe not, even every month, because look, he's been to New York 3 times already. The first 2 is totally useless. It had nothing to do with our quality of life here in Guam. And now he's there for the 3rd time.
Yeah, you know.
All of these elected officials got so much money in their office budget. Why don't we remove all of their office budget down to the bare minimum just to pay their salary and their staff salary, and that's it? If they have so much money to waste like that, why don't we take all of this money back and give it to the hospital or give it to UOG or get Simon Sanchez fixed and get the hospital fixed first, obviously. The hospitals are very top priority in my view.
You know, Tom, I know that it's come up on this program not that long ago when Bob was here. And it had to do with the enabling clause. Remember the enabling clause discussion? Yeah. Be it enacted by the people of Guam. If that clause does not appear at the beginning of a bill and it's passed by the legislature and it's sent to the governor and she signs it into law, it isn't a law because it is not an expression of the people of Guam. When the legislature acts, it can make a resolution, and they have to, they vote, right? But unless they say, be it enacted by the people of Guam, they speak for us.
Right.
So we already instituted our own receivership when we voted last November. We put those people in, and they have a responsibility under their job descriptions, their powers, and their powers, and with our blessings, and we empaneled them. We said, you go down there, you 15 go down there, and then you do it for us for the next 2 years. And the governor, we trust you. You be in charge of implementing the laws faithfully for the next 4 years. And then we'll judge you. We'll hold you accountable for your shortcomings, and we'll reward you for your successes in 4 years.
I remember candidate Lou Longueuil, when she was campaigning, she said, I promise to reduce our government expenses, and I promise to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse in our government. And I promise to look at all of the unnecessary travel, and I will eliminate those unnecessary travel. But all of those promises are broken.
Mm-hmm.
Instead of reducing the government budget, our budget now is almost $1 billion already.
Yeah.
957 million, I believe.
Yes, and we got a surplus.
And we got surplus.
And we have a surplus, but we're still 9.56 million short on just UOG. So how's that? That's why it throws all the numbers into question. How can you have a surplus if you haven't paid all your bills from the previous year? How can you claim a surplus? Please, somebody, please. I thought when you called up that you're the one's going to tell me, Tom. I would like to have a straight answer from the people who are getting paid to run the accounts and to report back to the people on just what it is they're doing on government time. But someday
I don't have the answer for you.
But when you said receivership, okay, the one as a downside to receivership, we could have receivership for something like the hospital, right? But we really don't want a receivership on the legislature, because then people will be flying in here and we'll be paying for their airfare to come out here and per diem themselves into our legislature and make the decisions, and we'd be paying, like for solid waste, we'd be paying, double for the services. It would not be cheap. But Tom, thank you so much for the call. Good to hear from you this afternoon.
I remember yesterday that my phone cut me off.
Yeah, let's not do that again today, huh?
This phone of mine just seems to hate me. If I start to talk too much, it just cuts me off. Yesterday.
Maybe it's no. Well, make sure you have a spare phone right there, okay?
All right.
And I'll be talking to you again soon. Thank you very much for the call, Tom.
All right.
Let's go to our break here. It's 4:34. Time to take a break, our first break of the afternoon, and we'll come back with more Tall Tales.
Wow, nice smile. So perfect and all.
Thanks. I owe it all to Dr. Robert Yang and his smile team. They do wonders for a healthy, happy mouth.
Got teeth? Don't wait until they hurt. Schedule your routine checkup and cleaning with Dr. Yang and his smile team. Suite 119 in the East West Business Center, Upper Tumon. Call 647-8702 or 3.
The best thing that happened to teeth since toothpaste.
Dr. Yang and his smile team.
They make smiles happen.
Hulu is all your TV in one place, plus more. Watch thousands of hit shows, movies, and award-winning Hulu originals for only $5.99 per month. It's TV without the cable contract and the freedom of on-demand streaming. Get current network shows from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and binge-watch every season of your favorite cable shows. Premium Hulu viewing is brought to you by Proline Automotive and AB Sports, Guam's store for Nike. To advertise on Hulu, call Choice Digital at 989-0042.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Welcome back to Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie, Guam's single voice of reason. Call now, 888-TALK. That's 888-8255. And now, sitting in for the vacationing Bob Klitzkie, here's Daryl Taggarty.
Yes, indeed. Absolutely. Pam Duvall joined us. Nate Horn says online, he says, but Gov Guam always comes first, Daryl. Yeah, yeah, I know, but, every day I wake up and I get the newspaper out of the box, I open it up, and I keep expecting it to say, Gov Guam, just put the people first. And it's not there. The headline's not there. Every morning I go online, I look at all the different news online, and I keep looking for that headline. It just doesn't pop up. And in my frustration, I prepare for this show. It's a hell of a way to spend a day. Beautiful, beautiful day outside, Even if you just sit underneath the tree and have a beer, at 11 o'clock and count my blessings, But I can't do that anymore because I got to be concerned with what it is that the media is telling you. And so what do I have to do? Come in here and, start a discussion on just what it is we've got going for a diet. There are diets that give you diabetes. There's diets that give you hypertension. And there are diets that just make you, round and slow. And that's what we're getting from our media. Maybe they have to up the price of the newspaper so we can have competitive news gathering. But but that's what the editors are for. They're supposed to go, take a stick and go to the reporter and go, why didn't you ask this question? Or why didn't you look into this aspect? Why does it have to be so superficial? Pam Duvall says, good research, Daryl. Well, thank you, but it's not so much research. It's Pam, you might have heard me mention yesterday, I was talking a little bit about, yesterday was just my first day back. Anyway, about the Nobel Prizes going to the economists. The development economists have grabbed 2 of the Nobel Prizes for economics of the last 5 years. And I studied, I purposely, after coming back in 74 to see what was going on, because I left in 68, came back in 74 after my sophomore year in college, and I came back and I saw what Ricky was doing with the Green Revolution and the proposal to have the port for the visiting cruise ships down in West Agana Bay, dredged out, right there out across from GCIC building, and this sort of thing. I went back to college and I changed my major to development economics, and it was tough. It was hard because you got to grab all these strands from everywhere. You have to understand your people. You got to understand the politics. You got to understand the values that are going on. You got to understand the flows of money that distort the otherwise straightforward administration of government, and are powering the expansion of the economy. And what people are doing that doesn't involve money at all, and how they come together and make decisions and go forward. And you gotta have, it's like having a team of 20 horses, and they're not hooked up in a line. They're all like spread out like a fan. And you gotta go in one direction. That's development economics in a nutshell. And finally, it's being recognized as a field that is advancing the human condition. And so if I pop up with remembering this over here and that over there, and what was the social contract with our leaders when we ate their corn soup and then went over and dropped the ballot, put the mark on the ballot and dropped it in the box. What was the contract? What did they say they were going to do for us? And here it is, not even a year later, and we're still waiting for things to happen. This stuff should have been happening when the governor put her request to the legislature back in March. You might recall I was here back in March. And I said, just wait until the governor puts her request to the legislature. And it wasn't there for the reforms of the government of Guam. And then I said, okay, well, it'll come in as they come in and do their requests, they'll start making their changes. No, didn't happen. And did the legislature ask? No. No oversight. And that was because of all the promises to roll the tax increase back. That we don't have to drag $60 million out of the economy to continue to pay for an oversized government of Guam. And now this stuff pops up. This is just what popped up out of the text of the two editorials today, and it's got me going. And so Pam continues, downsize, and then run it in the ground. I'm not minimizing the dependence that is a relationship between the employees of the government of Guam and executive direction, which is, the need to keep GovGuam as a going concern for the next 30 years. So they were hired, and so they're going to live out their days as GovGuam employees. I understand that. But at some point, we're going to have to change the government of Guam to make it work and not just satisfy employee ambitions to, grow old and gray while, coming to work every day and doing the same stuff. Elwin Champaco Kitano says, but UOG should not have emphasized their financial issues in open media and threatened students, using them as pawns, causing the legislature to react and feel obligated. They should have found other ways in cutting back and petition for their allotments. Let's go back, Elwin. Let me see if I can find the answer or the backdrop to this in the two editorials today, because it was here. It was here. Let's see. It's in here. I'm just taking a look. Because it was here. Da-da-da. The University of Guam was shorted in their allotments. They were shorted $13.7 million from fiscal 2016 to 2018. So 3 fiscal years, they were shorted about $4 million a year on average from what the legislature approved. But the governor's office did not, and the Department of Administration did not give them. $13.7 million. And then $9.56 million, so almost double, more than double that, in last year alone, how else would the new president of the University of Guam, what else can he say? I don't think it was a good move politically to increase admin salaries, take it to the board and get the board to approve them. But perhaps they were having trouble keeping their people. And maybe they should have said, okay, we can do without some of these people who have been with us for 20 years or so, and just go ahead and reduce it. But it would not have been enough to make up $9.56 million of not released allotment for last year alone, when the headlines are now, last week, that the surplus is $15.7 million. Because that surplus assumes that 9.56 was already paid, was already released to UOG. And they would not have increased the tuition. But if over the last 4 years, the legislature appropriated and the governor did not release $23 million in 4 years, as Kreis said, quote, "This fiscal bleeding is unsustainable." The legislature says, sure, we're going to give you the money. The governor says no. And then this year, they requested $33.9 million, and the legislature went, oh no, we'll give you $27.6 million. We know you can get away with $6 million less each year than what we were promising you before. Those are the numbers. And so, but in Zami-i-Kotni, not only are we looking at, we're looking at the quality of the editorials and the quality of the journalism that is being provided by the two leading newspapers on Guam on a daily basis. And this, what I'm saying here on Tall Tales, is what should have been in these editorials. They really should know what they're talking about. And so I'm not going to award any blue stars today. As much as I'm happy that PDN wrote a local editorial, and it even covered some aspects more so than for the Guam Daily Post to take a position that it's excessive. How ridiculous. How can you make up $9.56 million by cutting your cost? Of a budget request of 33.9, and then you're going to get 26, but you're expected to cut by $6 or $9 million a year. Where are they going to get that? Just start dynamiting buildings? Just say, okay, no, we don't need this, we don't need that, we don't need to have students coming from other places paying room and board in our new renovated dormitories. No, we don't need a college of engineering. No, we don't need to knock down the houses in Dean's Circle that were built after Typhoon Karen. We'll just kind of be like the rest of the government of Guam and muddle along. That's what that's what this legislature that we elected a year ago, this is what they've caused. This is squarely on this legislature. And because they have been watching, they get told exactly what's released for allotments. And they're not bringing it up because they're playing ball with this governor. And this governor seems to be, even though she's of a different sex and she's of a different political party, she has followed the same game plan as the previous governor that I worked for, that I supported as a Democrat. And I don't mean to say that things are getting worse, but I do expect them to get better. and I don't want to have to wait for another election. Is this unreasonable? Is this unreasonable? If it's unreasonable, let me know. Hey, Prima. Catherine Tyron is there, taking a peek. Happy to have you there. You can always chime in. Telephone number here is 888-8255. And our Facebook page, you can make your comments in the margins there. Elwin's back with us. Let's see. UOG Elwin Champaco Kitano says, UOG should get advice from its best business professors who could tell them that when you raise prices ridiculously, you lose customers. It's easier to go to accredited online institutions or attend GCC. Students have options. You are absolutely correct. And you don't have to ask the professors. Just ask the students. Ask the people who run financial assistance programs at the University of Guam. Ask them. Everyone knows you raise your tuition, you're going to be cutting off your students' options. It's 10 minutes. And my dad used to be in education, so I've been hearing this stuff for 45, 50 years. Anyway, let's take a break. It's 10 minutes to 5, and let's take another break here and come back with more Tall Tales.
Family Finance has been serving the people of Guam since 1959, and they'll continue to be there for you in the years to come. Whether you're looking to get a personal loan for that summer vacation or paying off those long overdue bills, Family Finance has got you covered. Apply for a personal loan from $1,000 up to $3,600 by calling Family Finance in Agutya at 475-4545, Upper Tumon at 647-5626, or in Dededo, 633-4473. Family Finance, serving the people of Guam since 1959.
Take Care Wellness presents the 7th Save the Susu Dance Fitness Fundraiser, October 19 from 6 to 8 p.m. at Tizen High School. Tickets are $10 in advance, $15 the day of the event, and $5 for kids ages 6 to 12. Tickets are available at Take Care Wellness, Guam Cancer Care, and through Marissa Collins. Grand prize for the raffle is a round-trip ticket to Asia or Micronesia from United Airlines. All proceeds benefit Guam Cancer Care. This message is made possible by the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
Absolutely. Welcome back to Tall Tales. Before we get to the card, I wanted to mention something here. And that is, hang on. Actually, I had something else written up in relation to this whole calculation of UOG, but for some reason it doesn't appear. I think maybe when I was doing some work on my word processor, it just kind of fell off the page. But here it is. Gov Guam versus the American Dream. Yeah, I guess this is a card item. You know, going beyond the two editorials. You know how Bob has the card, so it's like A versus B. And I generally, and I've explained this to Bob, I'm not wired that way, but I'm going to do my best to be to follow the format, a very successful format that's been established by Bob Klitzkie, and start to put this in A versus B terms. And here we are, Gov Guam versus the American Dream. And I'm going to keep this as a topic, but we're going to have different examples. When I see where the government of Guam is undermining the American dream, or as Governor Calvo was talking about, the Guamanian dream. Because we want a little different things out here. You know, if we decide to stay on Guam, we decide to have a life that you can't get in Utah or Nevada or Ohio or Michigan, Minnesota, New Hampshire. You can get it on Guam, and that's the Guamanian dream. But just Gov Guam versus the American dream. And here's the example, today's example. University of Guam tuition increases. Threatens students seeking higher education without leaving Guam. It threatens them with not getting it. Can the legislature fund student tuition directly? I mean, versus, by way of means testing. So, you fill out your financial aid package instead of giving the money directly to the UOG. It could give the money, post the money available for tuition assistance, so that the money does eventually end up with the UOG, because they've already delegated this to they set up UOG as an autonomous agency and promised to continue to fund it. And the University of Guam Board of Regents is the one that sets the priorities and the standards for what the university will do, how they will invest, how they will seek other funding for their capital expansion program, who to hire, what to pay them, right? All those decisions have been delegated by the legislature to the University of Guam Board of Regents. And then every year they come to the legislature and say, best university that we can produce here in Mingilau, and this is how much we need. So how about that? Can they fund student tuition directly via means testing? People who can't afford can apply for this money. Or money for coursework that is related to policy to promote certain academic areas or occupations, and have minimum grade point averages, or, something similar to Pro-Tech scholarships. There's ways to do this, but the simplest way is don't collect the revenues and slide them off from the University of Guam and spend them on something else that we don't know. I'm sure it's documented where that money, where that $9.56 million was spent, instead of going to University of Guam. Instead of. And still have a $15.7 million surplus. There are ways to do this. There are ways to not undercut the American dream. But Elwin is absolutely correct. UOG students can go online and get an education if they can't afford the University of Guam. There are options. And that's a brick and mortar institution, and it is, in this day and age, perhaps becoming outpriced. Or it's going to have to compete with other institutions of higher learning that are in the same cost bracket for students, and invite students from around the world, around the country and the world, to come to this university for the classes they offer. But when you look at the student body at the University of Guam, it is overwhelmingly in-state. People who drive from home to classes there. And these are the people of Guam. And that legislature and the Committee on the Budget and the Department of Administration and the governor have got to pay attention to the development of the young professionals coming up from our public schools and local private schools, taking advantage of the higher education available at the University of Guam, and how those numbers, the tuition numbers, square with the ability of the people of Guam to pay it. And not be sliding money away to pet projects. We need more candid. And until they get this straight, I'm going to still talk about Gov Guam versus the American dream. No. Is that what happens to the time? No. Sonny Cruz says, great day. It was beautiful when I was on my way in here. Really. I thought it was just beautiful out there. I mean, I don't have time to get down on my knees and thank my God for the beautiful day. I do in my heart. And I hope you do too. I'm getting ready to listen to what's going on in the world. Fox News is coming up at 5 o'clock, and there's so much stuff flying around. They've got it covered. And we'll have our halftime show. Great entertainment, so stay tuned for that. And I'll be here on the other side, and we'll have another hour together this afternoon here on Tall Tales.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.
Democrats storm out of a meeting. I'm Carmen Roberts, Fox News. A meeting between the president and Democratic leaders over Syria ends abruptly.
I asked the president what his plan was to contain ISIS. He didn't really have one.
And the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, reminding the president that the House voted overwhelmingly just before their meeting to condemn his Syria policy.
We're trying to get the answer. What is your clear plan that this resolution asked for how we fight ISIS? It was very sad.
House Republican leader Kevin McCarthy blames Pelosi for not being willing to listen to the president.
She storms out of another meeting, trying to make it unproductive. The other Democrats stayed and actually had a very productive meeting with the general from the Joint Chiefs, with the Secretary of Defense, and the president in this meeting stated what his #1 goal is, to make sure America is safe.
And as the Democrats walked out, the president reportedly said, "See you at the polls." Top administration officials will... Fox's Kevin Cork. The Wall Street Journal reports Energy Secretary Rick Perry said he called Rudy Giuliani.
I will bring a simple message. Stop your military operation immediately. Erdogan has already said that Turkey needs no mediators and that his military will push forward until all Kurdish fighters are driven out.
The Chicago teachers plan to walk off the job Thursday after failing to get a contract.
I would be remiss if I did not say I was disappointed by the CTU's decision to begin a work stoppage and force the cancellation of classes.
Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Schools will be open, students not required to attend. America's listening to Fox News.
Water. It covers nearly 3/4 of our Earth, from vast oceans to millions of rivers and streams. We're all concerned with protecting our world's water, but none is more important than the water you and your family drink and use throughout your home. A Connecticut water treatment system can improve your water so that your family is using the best water in the world. Connecticut, for refreshing ideas on water.
American Water Tech, a passion for improving lives through better water.
Hulu is all your TV in one place, plus more. Watch thousands of hit shows, movies, and award-winning Hulu originals for only $5.99 per month. It's TV without the cable contract and the freedom of on-demand streaming. Get current network shows from ABC, CBS, NBC, and Fox, and binge-watch every season of your favorite cable shows. Premium Hulu viewing is brought to you by Proline Automotive and AB Sports, Guam's store for Nike. To advertise on Hulu, call Choice Digital at 989-0042.
Chicago teachers say they'll be on the picket line today.
Chicago public schools have canceled classes today after the teachers union recommended some 25,000 teachers walk off the job in a strike over pay, other issues, class sizes, and support staff needs.
It's been too many decades that we've been forced and asked to swallow unacceptable conditions in our schools. And this is our opportunity to be heard and to do something about it.
Union President Jesse Sharkey, a strike would affect some 400,000 Chicago school kids. Mayor Lori Lightfoot has said the teachers' demands would cost the city $2.5 billion that it can't afford. In Chicago, Jeff Manasso, Fox News.
Health officials in Montana say a teenager has died of a lung disease associated with the outbreak of vaping-related illness. It's the state's first recorded death connected to e-cigarette use. An estimated 1,300 people have come down with vaping-related illnesses, according to the CDC. It was a very hot month in September, and it might be America's fault.
September of 2019 has tied September of 2015 as the hottest September on record. The people over at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration say part of the heat was driven by the United States, where all but the western third of the country was at record or near record heat. NOAA says this actually has been going on for decades now, from heat-trapping gases and the burning of fossil fuels. John Saucier, Fox News.
And if you think the atmosphere above the Earth is crowded with space junk, just wait. SpaceX wants to launch an additional 30,000 satellites beyond the 12,000 already planned. The company's Starlink project wants to expand Wi-Fi coverage to the world, and even though it applied for all those satellites, it may not have to launch them, but it could stop other companies from applying for the slots. I'm Carmen Roberts. This is Fox News.
It's a one-of-a-kind wine fundraiser. Guahan Sustainable Culture presents Wine in the Garden. The Hamamoto Gardens help support food sovereignty, security, and sustainability while sipping wines from around the world, surrounded by 50-some acres of beautiful farm and garden. Tickets are $75 each. Proceeds support education and outreach on how important, easy, and fun sustainable practices can be. Wine in the Garden is on Saturday evening, October 26th, starting at 5. For more details, go to our website, gusustainable.org, or call 687-6491.
Join Nissan Guam on November 3rd as we try to break the Guinness World Record of 250 Nissan vehicles in a motorcade. Register now for only $10 with proceeds going to select charities and get a free World Record Driver t-shirt. Plus, be entered into our raffle giveaway for a chance to win a $1,000 travel voucher from United Airlines and more. Registration is open to the first 370 people and closes November 1st. So hurry. Register online at NissanGuam.com or visit our showroom today. No purchase necessary to enter. Raffle conditions apply. See Nissan Guam for details.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And welcome back to Tall Tales. I'm Daryl Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie, who is away again, but he promises to be back by Thanksgiving. So I'll be holding the fort down for the next hour, and then I'll be back again tomorrow, and we'll just have some more fun with this. Thank you very much for tuning in, and welcome to those of you who have cleared your workplaces and you're in the car. You're able to join us for the second hour here on Tall Tales. I promised Bob, well, I didn't promise him, but I did respond to his encouragement that I keep the format of his feature in the program called The Card. And so I have a couple items in the card today, and they include, let's see, Hattig versus Gov Guam, and GMH administrators versus the Mirror, and Guam Department of Education versus troublemaking students. And that's that should get us through the next hour. We'll talk about each of these in turn today. If anybody's got Jack Hattig's personal number, you might want to give him a call and tell him to tune in, because I remember he was a regular caller to Tall Tales back towards it was campaign time last year, right? And even before campaign time, a regular caller and a good buddy for Bob, doing what he was doing the show here on Tall Tales. And so whether Jack calls in or not, he'll want to take a look at this at the card. In fact, Real Joe,
Yo.
Do you have Jack Haddock's number?
I do not.
Okay. And not that I need him.
You want me to get a hold of him?
Well, I just would like to let him know that I'm going to talk about him.
Oh.
Because he should listen in, and I should give him that heads up so he can enjoy the conversation. I'm in his corner. Okay?
Well, the good thing about it is he can always go back, and he's probably going to hear about it, and he can always go back and watch it later on YouTube or on Facebook.
Thank you for that reminder. You know, you see this gray hair? That's the qualification.
Yeah.
It's my shortcoming.
Somebody
here.
called him up already, I guarantee, and said, hey, he's talking about you.
Good. Okay. Thank you very much. Both you, Real Joe, and whoever you are who's been calling, who called up Jack and you know, jingled his phone and let him know that things are going to be happening. But let's talk first about GMH administrators versus the Mirror. And why would I say GMH administrators versus the Mirror? Well, let me just give you the headlines of the last week? Well, 2 weeks. The Guam Daily Post back on the 2nd of October, the headline was, GMH with ER full sends more patients to other hospitals. Remember that? Yeah. And then yesterday, one GMH operating room unusable because of an aircon problem, right? And then today in the PDN, yesterday, KUAM, is GMH beyond repair? A story on KUAM. We'll get back to that in a moment. And then also in yesterday's Post, Guam patients receive life-changing care at Taiwan Hospital. Right? We didn't get to that yesterday, but it was certainly, I had this. And then today's PDN, nurse shortage, broken elevators, GMH woes pile up. Now, why would I say GMH administrators versus the Mirror? I mean, what am I getting to here? In the coverage of the hearing that was conducted by Senator Therese Terlahi the other day, I have a quote here. I'm gonna pull up here. Let me see. Is it there? Oh, here we are. Finally, this is from the KUAM story. Finally, Chairman Terlahi, a chairperson, Terlahi, raised the well-publicized complaints of excessive physician contracts. Here's a quote. This is Lillian Perez Posadas, the administrator of the hospital, the CEO of Guam Memorial Hospital. Here's a quote. We're looking to see how we can make a consistent pattern and have some criteria, Posadas said. Quote, and we're reviewing the contracts also. We're looking at that as a concern, as an issue we want to try and fix. Now, just from the quote, and I have no reason to think that KOAM's story, let's see, who posted this story? Nestor Lecanto. He's not one to go putting words into people's mouths. You know, he took it right off exactly what she said. He has no reason to make her look bad, but she really makes herself look bad. We're looking to see how we can make a consistent pattern and have some criteria. So she's admitting, there's no criteria and there's no consistency. It's like basically there's no policy to have to follow, and that would be the board to set policy. And the management has not proposed a policy to the board, or there would be one, and there would be no question. And what else she say? And we're reviewing the contracts also. Well, it's nice for them to do after it's been in the newspaper that people are making like, $450,000. We're looking at that as a concern, as an issue we want to try and fix because it's a concern, because it's an issue, or because we're hemorrhaging money that they're asking for, or that they've got one person, and this is not just one example, but one person holding 3 jobs instead of 3 people holding 1 job and the same amount of money being spent. You get my point here? We could have more staffing at the hospital. There was another comment I saw. It might be in one of these articles. It had to do with nursing. Nursing. Let's see. Da 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 da. No, it's not on this one. Oh, nurse shortage, broken elevators. Okay, let's see if it's in this one. And it had to do with, oh, here it is. Paris Posadas said, despite reports to the contrary, GMH hasn't stopped overtime pay for nurses, saying nurses have been encouraged to work overtime due to staff shortages. But she said GMH has cut its on-call pay by 50 to 60%. So people who are not working, who are going about their business and maybe making business, but are being paid to be on call, to respond if somebody gives them a jingle, calls them on their beeper, their pager. They're cutting that down. But they're still paying nurse overtime. And those nurse salaries are already supposed to be competitive. So instead of hiring more nurses, they just keep paying the ones that we already have at overtime rates, which are much higher than the rate for another hot body that actually has gotten some sleep. And if you go to GMH, you know it's not the high-paid nurses who are running around doing all the work. It's the low-paid nurses, or those that are like assistants and assistants and assistants. They're not nurses, RNs. Who's getting the overtime? My goodness. And of course, they got to knock down the parts of the building that are like falling apart. So why do I say GMH administrators versus the mirror? Every time they open their mouth, it doesn't reflect well on them. And they're telling Senator Therese Tlahi, who's the oversight of health. And before the election last year, it was Dennis Rodriguez was the chair of the Committee on Health for how many terms? 3 or 4 terms? And this stuff was going on. The problem is that we've got people up at that hospital who are drawing a salary and they're in responsible positions. But they're not working for us. They're not working as if that's a public hospital, except that they have positions that are politically protected. And they can run things according to a political standard. Well, that cuts both ways. If it's a political standard, then we have a say in that. And who do we hold responsible? The person that under the Organic Act is responsible for the administration of health services in the territory, and that is the governor. And I might sound like a broken record here, but I have lots of LPs, so I'm very familiar with broken record. But the one person who has the responsibility and the power to straighten all this out is sitting at Adelup, And she's not tied. She's not tied to her chair or one hand tied behind her back. There's nothing holding her back. There must be incentives for keeping this obscenity in play. There must be. Because otherwise it would have been fixed. It would not have been tolerated, and it would not have spread to as many examples as we've been hearing over the years. And so the administrators, when they get up in the morning and they look at themselves in the mirror, they are preparing to come to work and administer that hospital with all of that stuff falling down. And they don't flinch when it comes time to collecting their paycheck. And we have nothing to say about how well FHP Clinic or GRMC, how well they do their job, because they're taking chances with private money. And as long as they do well, they'll take those profits and go bank them. As well they should. And I don't have any problem with the Taiwan hospital, the third one, to be accredited to serve insurance-covered patients from Guam. Because they've got good medicine there, and it's cost-effective. It's cost-effective compared to GMH and GRMC. Or the health insurance companies would not add them to the provider listing. They must also be effective, cost-effective, and effective medicine compared to flying you all the way to the States. Or they would not be listed. They would say, no, we can get this done cheaper and better in LA, in Minnesota, in Houston, right? My goodness. And so we're looking at the indicators here. And I want to talk about the Taiwan hospital all by itself, but right now I'm just talking about GMH administrators versus the mirror. And I may not let this go. I just may not. I may just keep stacking up the examples. Every time I open the paper, go online and take a look at the stories, and I find something about GMH, I'm going to remind you. GMH administrators versus the mirror. Okay, is that a deal? Okay, what else do we have? GDOE versus troublemaking students. PNC News First today. Oh, I forgot. Robert Koss commented because the administrators of GMH opened up the whole idea that maybe the building's just falling down, we need a new building. And we got to buy all this other stuff anyway. You know, new electronic hospital record system and aircon and elevators. Why don't we just go ahead and just get a whole new building? Which is just absurd that you would make that logical leap. And this is Lillian Perez Posadas, the CEO of GMH, talking. Okay. So Robert Koss, on his comment on KUAM, says GMH facility is absolutely not beyond repair, but its management is. Replace management with competent and honest people, and the fix will follow. The costs and price of repairs being reported by hospital management is grossly inflated, either to support their agenda or pad their pockets. And I saw that. I said, well, I'm going to have to read this out. Robert Koss, commenting on the KUAM website on the story, is GMH beyond repair? Because Lillian Perez Posadas, and the Army Corps of Engineers is supposed to assess the building, but they're not going to do that until next month. Let them tell us. And then Senator Therese Terlahi said, it sounds like the decision's been made and you're coming here with a recommendation. That's why I'm asking you, because we want an objective assessment of it. Okay. Let's move on. What was the other one? Got it here. There we go. Guam Department of Education plans to work with parents of problem kids. So I've got it here. GDOE versus troublemaking students. And this is Jerry Partito writing for PNC News First today. Guam Department of Education is planning to have closer interaction with the parents of students who cause trouble in their schools. And this was an interview that John Fernandez had this morning. And the board has been calling, the Guam Education Board has been calling for more to be done with regard to student troublemakers. And Fernandez said, Department of Education cannot do this alone and parents should be involved. We have to be working hand in hand with them. And another quote Fernandez said is, we are talking about a small minority. However, they have a big impact. With regard to the use of metal detectors proposed by a member of the Education Board, Fernandez said, it may not be wise to penalize all students for the actions of a few. Quote, what we will do is punishing all for the sins of the few. This will also impact the good students, Fernandez said. And he's right. We don't need knee-jerk reactions. We need for people who know what they're doing to do what they know is the right thing to do. And it's not just in DOE. I'm happy to see this because where else do you go to address troublemaking students? You call Ghostbusters? Nah, you go right back to the students. And that's what they did, right? They expelled them. And they're talking to parents. They're saying, you want your kids to get an education? They got to stop this antisocial behavior. Just behave themselves, do what's supposed to be done, and when they grow up, they'll thank us for it. So, good on you, John, for that part. Now, it's 5:26, and I promised to get to Haddock versus Gov Guam in the card. Let's take a look again at our Facebook page and see what comments are come up. Let's see. I had answered back some of Elwin's comments about UOG. And I pointed out to him, I thanked him for really good comments on offering here. And I was sharing with him that my dad, the one I'm taking care of now, right, same dad, was the base education officer up at Anderson Air Force Base for about 18 years. And over those years, I've heard an earful about the University of Guam's missed opportunities to offer courses to base personnel instead of leaving the market to the University of Maryland and another Texas-based education service, where they had professors signed on to live on Guam and provide those classes on the base instead of requiring them to the servicemen to drive down to UOG to take the courses there. It's an idiotic thing. Also, Guam Department of Education didn't spend its federal dollars to ensure math and science labs and security, which led to the losing of the DOD dependents and the building of the DOD schools. Instead of living up to standards, instead of actually taking the money that they had to implement higher standards, they let this slip through their hands. And I said, mediocrity continues. And even up in the Northern Marianas, the public schools in the Northern Marianas offer students the option of taking their own high school courses online for certain subjects instead of having to show up for class. And they have the class schedule arranged so that if you are a student who keeps up your grades, you can take certain courses online with the same teachers that you would be meeting with every day. But then you may not have to go to school 5 days a week. You might go 4 days a week or 3 days a week. And you do your work at home, and you're communicating, and you're keeping up with the coursework, and you are getting an education, and you are thinking this coursework through without having to be in the class. And it's, I've spoken with students up there who do this, and you would think it wouldn't work. The students really like it. They are responsible. They keep up their grades. They have to have B or better. And they love it. And they rise to the expectations of the teachers and the system. And if they can do it in the CNMI, what's wrong here? So Pam Duvall says, why do we even need to petition for a new Simon Sanchez High School? Exactly. Why are we discussing this? Why isn't it not simply a capital investment plan for the government of Guam and for the Department of Education? My goodness. Anyway, it's 5:30. Let's take a break here, and we'll come back for the card, continuing with Hattig versus Gov Guam.
GRMC's cardiology department treats most complex heart problems. In our catheterization lab, cardiologists use imaging equipment to treat clogged arteries that can cause heart attacks or heart failure. We perform balloon angioplasty, stenting, and other life-saving cardiac procedures. If you suffer from a heart condition, have your provider refer you to GRMC's cardiology clinic at 645-5500. GRMC, where patients are partners.
The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts of Guam Training.
We're discussing leadership styles, and we'll describe those you've seen, and if you're a manager, the styles you've likely used. I'm Jerry Roberts, and at 7:20 a.m. on The Ray Gibson Show, we'll give some tips on working with any style.
You can find daily transcripts of The Extra Point at guamtraining.com. Tune in every weekday morning at 7:20 for The Extra Point with Jerry Roberts. Brought to you by Guahan Insurance Services and First Hawaiian Bank on 93.3 The Point.
Tall Tales with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Mescla. Try their featured special for October. 3 cups chicken, an iconic Taiwanese dish. Boneless chicken sauteed with ginger, chilies, star anise, scallions, basil, green beans, and a sweet soy mixture. Served with your choice of starch. Visit Mescla in Agana and now in Tumon at the Grand Plaza Hotel. For reservations, please call 969-2652.
Thank you, Real Joe. You know, some of you may recall that I was talking about being an Orioles fan. Baltimore Orioles fan. Of course, they're not in the news today. But the Washington Nationals are. And the Washington Nationals are such a sad, sad story. When I moved to D.C., when my family moved to D.C. in 1971, early 71, the Washington Senators were just the bottom of they were just the worst of the worst. They had terrible, terrible record, and nobody went to go see their games. It was just not. Nobody bothered. And they left in 72. They went down and became the Texas Rangers. And I don't know how many years ago, 6, 8 years ago, another team came over and occupied RFK Stadium, and now they're called the Washington Nationals, and now they're in the in the World Series. But there's very few people going to see them still, because it's like not a baseball town. Now, unlike Baltimore, 40 miles up the road, with the Baltimore Orioles, they've had a really a good reputation. They have a new stadium now, but sometimes they're good and sometimes they're not so good. But you know, they have loyal fans, and I'm one of those. The Nationals, who are they? And you know, Bob likes Chicago, and that's too cold for me. Haddock versus Gov Guam in the card. You saw the article today. Dengue scare could lead to Chamorro Land Trust Commission lease reviews. But when you read the article, it has nothing to do with lease reviews. It has all kinds of stuff in this article. Melissa Savares said the Dededo mayor's office used about $50,000 worth of remaining purchase orders from Dededo and other villages to pay Global Recycling to take in the junk vehicles and tires. More than 3,000 used tires and over 400 junk vehicles. 400 junk vehicles? Because they were going out to do a dengue sweep? You know, they're trying to kill mosquitoes and they collected that many tires and cars? Wow. And Haddock said the Chamorro Land Trust Commission has established a plan to continue to monitor Swamp Road to help prevent the area from being a dumping ground. As a longer-term solution, Chamorro Land Trust Commission has started revisiting policies and statutes to see whether stipulations can be added to the leases to require lessees to have solid waste pickup service, among other things, Haddock said. Quote, "The silver lining on dengue was that it had to happen in order for us to really address this situation. We're hoping it doesn't happen again." Haddock told mayors, a proactive approach, he said, is to also try to visit other leased Chamorro Land Trust Commission properties in Dededo and other villages where families are known to live in, quote, substandard types of conditions, end quote, that are ripe for dengue cases. Besides Chamorro Land Trust Commission, other agencies that Haddock hopes will help revisit Swamp Road are the Guam Environmental Protection Agency, Department of Public Works, and other agencies. You know, he's talking about the Chamorro Land Trust Survey and Infrastructure Fund was raided during the prior administration. And Haddock said, quote, "The way forward is not simple. Quote, the bottom line is, I hope we can implore the utilities to see that this is a worthwhile investment of capital improvement to assist us." So why do I put here Haddock versus Gov Guam? We've got one guy who's supposed to be working for the Chamorro Land Trust Board, for Pika Ferran and her gang there. That's been in, that gang's been there for years. And didn't we just, in the last couple of weeks, didn't we just see a story about how she tasked back in June or so for Haddock to come up with all of these new regulations on how to lease properties and it looked from the story. I thought that journalists should have really dug down a little deeper there to tell us really what was going on. But basically, from what I could see from the story, Pika Ferran was saying to Jack Haddock, "We want you to write up some procedures and some regulations and some amendments so we can adopt them, and then we can roll this program out the way it's supposed to get rolled out. But the directions that they were giving him don't conform to law." Now, I want to go back and take a look at this. Maybe Jack will call, but he, you know, I mean, as an appointee of the administration, he probably shouldn't call and explain himself or explain what he's doing vis-a-vis the chair that he's working for. You know, that's not polite. It's not a way to get things done. She'll just get mad, you know. Governor will get mad because he's opening his mouth and, you know, airing out the dirty laundry. But it's not hard to see. He has to deal with the Leon Guerrero administration. But consider this. Jack Haddock isn't a Democrat. He ran as a Republican. He ran for a seat in the legislature as a Republican. And from what I understand, from what I recall, his family is a very strong supporter of Carl Gutierrez. Now, this is not a disqualification. I think he's a really good person for that job. I think he's one of the best appointments that fits the job that has to be done. And it's a tough job to have to be in between Picafarin and the lessees and the Attorney General's office and the land management staff. That's a tough job, and I'm glad he's got that job because it's a tough job. That's why I've got him as, you know, Haddock versus Gov Guam, because he's got to be doing his level best. But they gave him all this stuff to do, and he didn't get it done. He was on National Guard leave or something. He was in training, and the story was about how Pica was trying to dig her high heels into his neck to get, you know, to penalize him for it. But that's kind of hard to do, politically and practically, you know. So Gov Guam also, it's not only the Leon Guerrero administration. It's not just Adelup he's got to watch out for, but also the legislature, because the legislature has not called an effective oversight hearing on the Chamorro Land Trust Commission. And it better not, as long as the chair and the executive director are not, you know, basically, you know, drinking buddies and, you know, and know how to dance the dance together. Otherwise, it's going to be, you know, things are going to unravel publicly. One thing I didn't put in here is that I seem to recall somewhere along the line that the Chamorro Land Trust is a subject of another one of those Dave Davis cases. That the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and the way it distributes land is being challenged in federal court for using race-based criteria. And that hasn't come out for a while, but it's another one of those responsibilities where Jack has to keep this whole thing on the rails, and without even having a future of the program future. So the legislature, no oversight hearings. What is the relationship of the members of the legislature to the members of the Chamorro Land Trust Commission that they confirmed? They examined them and confirmed them, right? And what's the outlook for Jack Haddock to go drafting those regulations and then putting them through the AAA process and sending them down to the legislature to be adopted? Or maybe Pico will just say, just write them up and we'll just do it your way. However you write it up, we'll confirm it and then we'll back it. We'll figure out the rest of it, whether it's legal or not. You know, someday when we have our own lawyer and somebody comes along and challenges us in court. Gosh, I think I'm starting to sound like Bob. Oh, but I'm not a lawyer, so, you know, excuse me. I'm not practicing law here without a license. Oh, what else is Gov Guam? Oh, yeah. What else is here? Let's see. Starting to pick up some comments here online. Elwin Champaco Quitano says, Director Haddock. He's a director? No, he's an executive director. Is correct. Our government's sins of ignoring water access to Chamorro Land Trust Commission lessees has caused dengue to flourish. washing hands, showering, shampooing are just as important to keeping hundreds out of GMH. Everyone has a right to water, but the government, GWA, continues to fail and ignore this public need. And then Pam Duvall pipes up and says, I should start a petition for each home to have trash containers. I'm going to, actually, there's a solution. I'm going to have the same comment for both solid waste and water distribution. It was known when these lands were distributed. It's part of the Chamorro Land Trust enabling legislation that there is not only the power to lease land to people to go out and lease agricultural land, for purposes that are spelled out in the law. Some of those purposes are to lease land for commercial purposes. And the reason that they do that is so that they have a fund. And that fund is to develop the infrastructure. Water, power, roads. But what's happening is that the fund is raided. What does he say here? Yep. The Chamorro Land Trust Commission Survey and Infrastructure Fund was raided during the prior administration, officials had said. Haddock said Chamorro Land Trust Commission is not the proper agency to talk to about providing access roads. The mayors are asking, why can't you do this? Why can't you deliver it? And Haddock says, well, because I don't have any money. I can't pay for this. It's the board. And the governor, back again there, other places in the government of Guam, because they are responsible for collecting and banking and distributing the monies in the fund. Even the legislature is notified if funds are going to be used for another purpose than it was intended. There is a notice, a required notice. So they know. Senator Joe S. St. Augustine, he knows. He knows exactly how much money is being transferred from one use to another. And so there's no secrets here. But I'll say the poor people that got some free government land and are residing there instead of in Gura housing or in Section 8 housing or at, one of the, public housing, or being homeless, and they're not even being farmers, and they're not required to be farmers. But those people have been living that way without services, even though the program is funded to provide those services, to extend to make them paying customers of Waterworks and GPA, and they should be able to afford solid waste. But solid waste, again, there is no means testing to allow people who cannot afford the $60 or $30, $60 a month to still get their services. That would be something that the government, and I don't want to make this a new program, but in to make a complete program, you still have to be able to capture all of the waste stream. You have to account for all of it. You can't have leakages, because those leakages end up being stockpiled on land because it's more expensive or trouble than individual households can manage. If you don't have government finding a way to account for all of the waste stream in its design for solid waste. And so how much did it cost to clear up all those vehicles? Wouldn't it have been better to simply pay this in advance through some organized program design. So continuing on with Haddock versus Gov Guam. So Haddock has to take on the Chamorro Land Trust Commission board with appointed and confirmed members of the board. Pika Farron is like the only one that we know, but the others vote with her and back her up. The Attorney General, apparently, giving somebody over there, but is and I've seen this, where the chair simply tells the AG rep to just thank you very much for your advice, but sit quietly, please. And didn't they ask for these fake regs to be drawn up by Jack Haddock? And then Jack Haddock versus Gov Guam. Gov Guam's the previous Chamorro Land Trust Commission and land management staff. The standing commitments that are on file for all those people who leased land. And some of those employees may still be there, or they may have taken part in self-dealing, and he has to dig through that stuff. It's 10 minutes to 6. We're not even done here yet. I still have a list. Haddock versus Gov Guam will continue after these messages.
Take Care Wellness presents the 7th Save the Susu Dance Fitness Fundraiser, October 19 from 6 to 8 p.m. at Teason High School. Tickets are $10 in advance, $15 the day of the event, and $5 for kids ages 6 to 12. Tickets are available at Take Care Wellness, Guam Cancer Care, and through Marissa Collins. Grand prize for the raffle is a round-trip ticket to Asia or Micronesia from United Airlines. All proceeds benefit Guam Cancer Care. This message is made possible by the stations of Choice Broadcasting.
Talk Tells with Bob Klitzkie is brought to you by Bank Pacific, banking on the Pacific for 65 years.
And before the break, we were talking about this item on the card of Haddock versus Gov Guam. Here we go. How about the lessees themselves? All those people holding a permit to occupy government land that he is now the executive director of the program. Each of those lessees has a direct relationship to one or more politicians, whether it's the mayor or a senator or a governor or former governor or the political organization for any of these folks. And so Jack Haddock could march out there and say, "Excuse me, but you're not complying with your terms of the agreement," and hand him a copy and go down to the next house. I mean, if you do that 20 or 30 times, he's going to have 20 or 30 people all calling the same phone number downtown. So he's got to watch out for that. Not that he wouldn't do it or that he shouldn't do it. But that's another aspect of doing your work for Gov Guam and having another part of Gov Guam come slap you upside the head, with a reality check. How about Gov Guam, the Gov Guam that he's dealing with, that he went to meet with, which is the article here. The article is on page 1 of today's PDN. Dengue scare could lead to Chamorro Land Trust Commission lease reviews. But actually, it's a meeting on yesterday where Jack Haddock III told a special meeting of the Mayor's Council. That's what the article's about. A special meeting of the Mayor's Council with Jack Haddock. It happened yesterday. Fascinating, fascinating. So the mayors, he met with the mayors who are also in the executive branch but are elected and can bring some political heat to slow down or derail or, appeal just about anything Jack Haddock could come up with. So he's got to watch out for that landmine. It's really easy for the mayors to take credit for things that work and then suggest where the blame may lie for those that don't work. So he's got to watch out for that. And I haven't even gotten started on the other agencies. He's got to deal with Guam Power Authority, Guam Waterworks Authority, and try to come up with, and it appears by the article that he is trying, to come up with some way where these agencies, the autonomous agencies, can come in and take a regular concern or make a suggestion on how these things can be done. Department of Public Works on building roads, maintaining the roads. Guam Solid Waste Authority, another autonomous agency like GWA and GPA, that they already have a program that's incomplete, doesn't include Chamorro Land Trust Commission residents. How about the Department of Agriculture? Since there's supposed to be an agriculture tie-in with the use of these lands, and if they're not sending inspectors out themselves to qualify these folks for continued occupation of the land, well, Jack's the one that's got to do this kind of negotiating with these different agencies on how the law will be followed, how the programs will be followed, and not to mention the Department of Public Health and Social Services for their nursing outreach to impacted residents who may be the most at risk for disease such as dengue fever. It's just, as he said in the article, it's like this is our opportunity, right? What do you say? What do you say? The silver lining on dengue was that it had to happen in order for us to really address this situation. We're hoping it doesn't happen again, Haddock told mayors. We're hoping that it doesn't happen again. But until we get these solutions nailed down, then the next crisis to pop up that involves the Chamorro Land Trust Commission, leased lands, it will happen again. So then Haddock versus Gov Guam. Gov Guam includes the law, just the black and white of the law. Is the law sufficient for the executive director to do the job that he was hired to do? Who ratifies his recommendations? Doesn't he have to go to Picafaran and say, okay, I've got all these recommendations. And after all the hard work, technical work, and negotiating with agencies and the governor and taking into account that his co-workers are not expecting him to unravel anything that they put in before he came in the door, and the legislature down the line, who's going to ratify his recommendations? Picafaran with her own network of relationships? And we still have Dave Davis out there trying to throw that whole law out so that no matter what you do, the awards may be overturned because of race-based distribution. Elwin Champaco Quitano says, each village should have their own water well run by private companies and transfer stations. This would solve many issues. No, I disagree. All you need is water line. They could have a water line out there and electronic. You call up on your phone and the meter just turns on. You go with your 55-gallon drum and you have a 2-inch pipe that just fills your drum to take it home. Or they could run the lines out there and they count the number of people on the road. And the census is going to sign them up. There's no reason why the Chamorro Land Trust Commission and the government of Guam can't know with specificity exactly how many customers are on the line. They just have to, down at the legislature, find a way to pay GWA for the services, for this aspect of residency on Guam that has been simplified and overlooked as a matter of government procedure. and the music swells. Thank you all for joining me here on Tall Tales. Thank you for your comments. Thank you for your phone calls. And thanks for tuning in. I'll be back here tomorrow afternoon. I'm Darrell Taggarty, sitting in for Bob Klitzkie. I'll be back tomorrow afternoon at 4. Ray Gibson will be here at 6 o'clock with the Ray Gibson Show tomorrow morning. And we'll take a look at the what we have in common together, which is our government and our free press and our ambitions and our, we didn't have an earthquake today. It was over in Mindanao, but we still ducked and covered, right? Stay tuned for more fine programming on this radio station here on The Point. Have a good evening, everyone.
The Point is KUSG, Hagåtña, Guam, 93.3 FM and 104.3 HD3.